Awesome. So yeah, we're live now. Let me just see if I can stream to Facebook as well. It's always a bit of a challenge, it seems. But yeah, super excited. Yeah, great to see everyone logging on. Just maybe raise your hand if you can hear us all okay. I'm gonna get started in just a moment here on automations. Thanks everyone. Looks like everyone's hands going up, so we look good. Today, yeah, super excited to talk about automations, and luckily got a lot of the masterminds behind this feature as well. So yeah, we're going to get into it in just a moment. Caroline is on our product team, Follow Up Boss, recently a winner of the Greatest of All Time Employee Award. So, a superstar in the product team, and has really masterminded the whole automations feature for us. So yeah, just send her a thank you if you're enjoying it, or if you have questions. She's also a great resource or suggestions. Also got Jennifer from our customer success team, former winner of the Greatest Full Time Award, and a great working with a lot of the top teams in the country, on their processes and dialing in Follow Up Boss for their systems and everything like that. So yeah, super excited to have Jennifer on the call, who's going to be answering a lot of your questions. And Emily, who is not a Follow Up Boss team member, but works with one of the greatest teams, in the country, is the operations manager there down in Orlando for the WeMart team. And, they've won like just so many awards, like top Zillow awards, top Realtor.com, Real Trends awards. I didn't even know how to describe, your team down there, but you're definitely a power team. And, I think the biggest thing people keep asking us for is like, just tell us how people are using this. How can they practically use automations, or what are other teams doing? And so that's why we wanted to bring Emily on, so she can share some of her, insights into some of the things they're doing, which are more basic. And then also, some of the other things that are maybe a little bit more advanced as well. So, I'm not going to talk for too much longer. I'll hand it over to Caroline to kick us off with a bit of a demo. Then I think we're going to dive into some of the ways Emily's team is using it. And then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So yeah, again, thanks everyone for jumping on. We're really excited to have you all here, but almost 200 people live. So yeah, thanks for jumping on. And Caroline, I'll let you take it away.
Cool. Thanks everybody for being here. And let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, cool. So are we all looking at some automations now? Awesome. So, with automations, like, we have lead flow already. So, lead flow can kick off action plans for new leads. We have smart lists to, group together new leads, but, we were kind of finding that there was this gap of like what's happening with our existing leads that are in Follow Up Boss. And we were finding that, there's definitely people out there that are using other automation tools like, Zapier and other things like that. But not everyone has the time and the resources to set those up. So we wanted to start, solving some of that like in Follow Up Boss and bringing that into the app. So, one of like the exciting things that we wanted to solve right away was like, how do we make this like really intuitive, really approachable, like really easy to use? So we started with like kind of a simple visual design here with automations. So on this automations page, we'll start kind of like on the list view page. So this list view is available to anyone in the account. So all of the agents, all of the lenders, they can see the whole list of automations and, the action plans that are running. And they can also see the number of times that they've run. And then if you're an admin or an owner, you can also turn on, you can enable the automations from here. And then you can also share, which I'll kind of circle back to here in a second. Also, if you're an admin or an owner, you can add an automation. So we'll kind of start with working through that workflow. So here on the automations editor, you can see all the different triggers here. So these are the triggers that will start an automation. And I'll kind of skip over the stage and the tags because I think Emily has some really good automations for those. But I'll start with the new inquiry and the property saved and the property viewed. These are the triggers that work really well with your Follow Up Boss pixel. So if you have the pixel running, you actually are already getting these events into Follow Up Boss. So for this example, we'll kind of stick with maybe a few of these triggers. So we'll do the property saved and the property viewed trigger. You can have multiple triggers for your automations. So if you, you can have like, multiple stage changes or, just different events that way. So once you have your triggers selected, this is kind of like the when this happens part of your automation. So when you have a property saved or when you have a property viewed, that's when this will kick off. So the next thing that you want to do is like add some conditions. So in designing the conditions, we wanted this to work pretty similar to like what you're used to with our smart lists. So you'll notice that you're seeing like a lot of the same filters that you see within smart lists. And this is really meant to help you like narrow down the group of people that you want this automation to trigger for. So some like really good conditions that you can use with these automations are like email. So you can say like when a property is saved or when a property is viewed, we can have the condition for email is good. So if this is going to kick off like a communication-based action plan, that would be like an important, condition to have there in the beginning. So another one that's a really good one to use here with the automations would be like source. So if you have, a lead that has come in and they have a new property saved or a new property viewed, and the source of this person was like your company website, you might want to target that person different than someone that has come in through like Zillow per se. So that's why source is a really good one to use here as a condition. Another one that would be like really helpful to use, especially if you're using some of these website triggers, would be last activity. So like for this one, if you have maybe like last activity set to being more than 30 days ago, this is like a really good way to indicate that someone has like returned to your website and has new activity. So you might want to target someone, who's become recently active again, a little different than someone who's been like active on your website like every few days for the last 60 days or something along those lines. And then the last one that I wanted to call out is like one of our new features, and that's pond. So if you have pond included as a condition, you might want to target, again, those people different based on if they are assigned to a pond. So, if there's been a new property saved, a new property viewed, and they're in the pond, you might want to do something like a little to grab your agent's attention a little bit more specifically, such as, like assign a task directly to someone or add a note or something like that. And so, these are just some good conditions to call out. So like what we have so far, the way to read this would be, if a property is saved or if a property has been viewed and all of these conditions are met, we can then add an action. And so the action is going to be just selecting an action plan. I won't get like too much into, action plans. I think we're all like pretty familiar with action plans and how those work. But I think it's important to call out like, there's a lot of functionality built into action plans on its own. So, you can add notes, you can notify folks, you can send out communications, but you can also do like assign a task and, even pause action plans. So those are just some things to keep in mind to like work in correlation with these events and with these different conditions as well. So we'll go ahead and just kind of choose an action plan here. And then once your action plan is selected, the last thing that you're seeing here is the setting for run once per person. So this is like the default setting. And that just means that this automation will only run once per person. But as we mentioned, there's like a lot of things that action plans can do. And so some of them are more, task-based or like workflow-based action plans. And we might want those to run more than once per person. So we have this option to actually have this run multiple times per person. So, that's a good one to use for like workflows or even maybe like recurring dates and things like that. So at this point, like all we really need to do is add a name. So I'll just say like new website activity, and then we can save it. And then once you save here, you can just save, or you can save and enable it at the same time. But now we actually have the option for You can delete it, but you can also share your automation. So this sharing option, I'll go ahead and click this so we can take a look. So if you're choosing to share an automation, you can enable it here. What this does is this actually gives you a public link to your automation. And this is really useful for a few reasons. Like you can share this out to your team if you want this to be like part of, like an internal playbook of some sort. But we also wanted you to be able to kind of like crowdsource some of this information and share this information with each other. So if you copy the link here, what you're seeing here is a link preview. So if you were to share this link on like Facebook or something like that, this is the link preview that would generate. It has your avatar as a little logo in here, your name, and then your company name if you have that. And then we can just add a description. I'll just show you what this looks like. So we'll copy this and then save it. And so this public link here, what's cool is like, it's going to give us the full automation that we just built. So you'll see the different triggers, the different conditions, the action plan, and then it actually gives you the action plan steps. So again, you can, if you have a Follow Up Boss account, you can just click use automation and that will copy the whole automation to your account. And then you can, edit it as you see fit. So we've had some like really great success with people sharing these like really intricate automations that they've come up with. I'm sure like some of you are familiar with Barry Jenkins. He has shared some really cool automations with us already that we have available. And one example of this and like why this like share feature is really useful is he's like built out some really cool automations that are pretty intricate. Like this one, for example, is triggering call action and Callingly. And so he shared this out with some folks so that you can, just copy to this to your account and start using them right away. So I guess that's kind of, a high level overview of, some of these options, but I think Emily probably has some really great use cases on some of the other automations that she's using.
Well, first of all, thanks for even inviting me to be a part of this. I was so excited when automations launched because in our world, we're always looking to simplify and we're always looking to work smarter and not harder. And automations lets you do that. It lets you think once through the beginning of how things could route or go or change. And then you can let go a little bit and let things come back to the surface for you or move around appropriately. So automations has already opened up a world for us that we're super excited about. So thank you, Follow Up Boss team, for building it and launching it. It's been a game changer already, which we can talk about too if you want. So I want to make sure I'm giving you some really practical applications for us, and maybe some of them are for those of you that might just be starting with automations. You don't need to be scared of them. And so we'll start with one of the ones that I think is the most practical, which is just stage changing. So your automation trigger, when you pick stage change, we were going through and we were, and I think Caroline's going to pull up our Follow Up Boss so you can see what we're doing on our end. We use a lot of stages in our business in order to help sort our Follow Up Boss and keep everything kind of segmented in a way that's easy to figure out what stage people are currently in. And so this for us isn't just A, B's, or C's. This would be like marketing goes into a funnel for us that's a stage, or our realtors and brokers are actually going into a stage. And I know this may be a little different than the way that others are using Follow Up Boss, but we have a really large database of around 100,000 people. And so this helps us and helps our agents keep everything kind of nice and clean. So as we were working through and trying to decide which one of these stages should maybe get a follow-up automation that triggers something, we realized almost every stage we had, there was an application to use it. So some of the really practical ones are like our C buyers. So if I'm an agent and I change someone to a C buyer, I'm now starting a long-term buyer nurture plan, which is going to generate the tasks or generate those auto emails for the agent on their behalf. And all they had to do is change the stage. They no longer have to remember to go in and set one-to-one tasks. They no longer have to remember to go in to set the action plan. They can go ahead and just change the stage, and it triggers all of those things to happen automatically. Same with long-term seller nurtures. Same kind of program for us that launches. Birthdays are a big one for, actually, that's jumping ahead, I guess, just a little bit here for us. So Other stages for us that I think would be great would be like post-closing, which is going to trigger our post-closing plan. And that actually, one of our collaborators comes in and triggers the stage to change. So it doesn't even have to be the agent, and it's triggering the right plan at the right time. So it's keeping these things as simple as possible, but realizing that there's possibility probably even in stages that you wouldn't necessarily think about using automation on. But it's really, truly all about working smarter and not harder. Management pieces for us, like this goes deep fast. So when an agent changes someone to a C buyer, we're able to automatically add tags within the action plans that already exist, so that our leads manager can go in and check based on those smart lists and be checking in on those leads to make sure they're actioned appropriately. And she's functioning off of smart lists, so the well gets kind of deep there really fast. So I won't go too deep into that, but we've just found that being able to choose an automation to do things automatically takes the user error out of it for our agents. So all they have to remember is change the stage, and all of the other things line up for them. And then if they'll get up in the morning and check their tasks, they know who they're supposed to be talking to today, or the right smart list, they know who they're supposed to be talking to today. But all they had to remember right up front was to go ahead and change the stage to start. A few of the other triggers that we're using, and Caroline, feel free to jump in if you've got questions about anything that we're talking through here, would be calendar date triggers. We love this for birthdays, for home anniversaries, and I know I saw a couple of automations automatically set up for folks through Follow Up Boss. We're using those in our world to create a task, and it's one, like literally that trigger is generating one task, just saying it's your client's birthday. Call or text them today. And so we're not even sending out an automated email. In our world, we're already sending out a birthday card that goes out ahead, but we're asking the agent to put in the personal time to just call or text that person and communicate with them directly, but it's just triggered off of the automation from the date. Same with home anniversaries. So in our world, we use home anniversary and we use closing, like past client, or we use closed. And closed for us are investors. They're people that it's maybe not as fluffy. It's not a home that they're living in. And so I don't need to put out that call. So my automation would be set up just for our home anniversaries to trigger that personal touch, but it's not set up for those that are just listed as closing, so that we're not junking up our agents' tasks in the morning with tasks that they don't need to do. But we love the calendar date triggers.
Some other cool like calendar date triggers that I've also seen used are, you know, based off of maybe like even appointment times, or like an upcoming appointment, like with an appraiser or something along the lines of that. So, you know, if it's like 3 days out from a meeting with the appraiser, you can, you know, send out a reminder email and that kind of thing. So there's just some simple like one-step things that you can do with those dates as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. The other big one for us is new inquiries, which really aren't new inquiries. So Caroline kind of said this off the top, but one of the amazing things about automations is how do you manage the existing people here and pull people back to the top that are re-raising their hands, especially when you have a database segmented to lots of people. So in our world, we function off of what we call contacted leads and uncontacted leads. So contacted leads for us live with agents, uncontacted leads live with the brokerage and are being handed out to agents. It's just the way that we're set up. But so we have automations set up for 2 different sides of that trigger. So if a lead raises their hand, it belongs to that agent. It's a contacted agent, but they've re-inquired. We always joke that it means they have a kitty out of the box, like they're on a website somewhere re-registering. So the agent maybe needs to re-wrangle the kitty and pull them back into the box, which is kind of a terrible analogy now that we're sharing that with the world. But that automation pulls it back in front of the agent. It's sending out that auto email. It's sending out auto communication to the client saying, hey, I see that you've re-inquired on this. I'm on it. How can I help you? It buys the agent time to get back to it. And then on the back end, it's actually triggering assistants that we have on standby that are watching smart lists that are grabbing those 2 and going, hey, Britt, I know you're in the field. Did you see this? Hey, Cindy, I know, are you with a client? Do you need me to answer for you? And they're able to pick that up. I mean, that's brokerage specific on how we exist. And then those uncontacted leads on the other side, those are being triggered to go back to our leads bucket. So we have 2 to 3 agents deep on our lead line all day, every day. And those are being pulled right back up and served up because they're uncontacted leads. They don't belong to anyone, so to speak. And it's pulling them right back up to the surface so that they land in the right box and can be managed. But all of that was having to be done manually before automations existed. So the time that we are saving by not having to have someone sit and watch these lists is priceless.
I set an automation up with a team this week who has their leads in a pond, like you're talking about, the ones that aren't being owned by the agent. So we set a condition there that said if there was some new inquiry or new activity on these leads that are, and the condition was the lead is in the pond, then that's going to resurface them, meaning like change their stage to put them back on a hot list, notify somebody with a task, and kind of get them back into the flow.
Yeah, I think it's a game changer for just bringing people up out of that undercurrent where we can't see them and they're doing things, but unless you're watching all the right lists or doing all the right things, they can be hard to find. So watching these guys come right back up to the top of the lists saves that time and that energy.
Emily, do you feel like you've like changed the way that you guys are using smart lists, or that you're using less lists now or more lists?
I think we're using less lists overall. Because again, I'm not having to watch lists to see, did someone re-inquire? It's automatically kicking it to the right bucket, so to speak. So I think we're down probably a good 5 to 6 lists of where we were before we started automations. And I wish I had great examples for you off the top of my head. I just know our whole goal in this season is to simplify. And it felt like such a breath of fresh air when automations came out because it aligned with our goal of simplifying all of this.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think that was part of, as we developed this, it's like, again, like, how do we make this really simple, easy to use, and keep you focused on the things that you need to be doing, as opposed to like all those administrative tasks of having to move stages and having to monitor smart lists, as you said.
Yeah, I think I was talking to a team member of mine that is our leads admin, and we were discussing, we talk about, you know, what do we want to do with these? What could we do with these? And it gets really overwhelming really fast. So if you're on this call and you're like, oh man, this just feels like a lot, it doesn't have to be. You can really simplify it down into, all right, I'm going to take this one stage, and you can pick any stage that you have and ask yourself the question, what ideally should be happening when I pick this stage? So if it's our C buyers and it's long-term nurturers, how do I set myself up if you're the agent, or if you're a team trying to help your agents, how do I set them up for success when we get to this stage? So do they need tasks generating so that, you know, if it's still running on that action plan, they're reminded to check in with that person? Does it need to appear on a smart list? Do we need to send auto emails, or are we interrupting a real relationship at this point? And should it be one-to-one? So should it be a task reminding them to check in? Do we need to put triggers in there? And you just ask yourself one at a time, you know, what do I need to build to fulfill this particular stage? Or what do I need to build that would make this tag work for us better, or for this calendar date to work for us better? And it's not nearly as overwhelming when you tackle it kind of one at a time. When you look at the whole picture, it can definitely feel like it's a lot. But one at a time will lead you right down that road. And all of a sudden you've saved yourself all of that time and that energy and that effort.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, if we're taking the time to set up these stages and have like, you know, standard procedures around what these stages are, it's a really good moment to kind of like be mindful of like, what does that actually mean? Like, what should be actioned after that? You know, similar with tags and even the calendar dates. Like if you're taking the time to put those in there, like it means you probably want to do something with that and to action it. So it's a good time to like take a step back and be mindful of those processes and get those in place so that, you know, we can streamline all of that.
Yeah, one of the other things we found too, just as a tipper, was if you're starting a new action plan based on like a stage change or something happening, ask yourself, are there other plans that I need to turn off? Like, is this, you know, and do the turn off all action plans button and take care of that. It's just a weird tipper, but it was a trip up that we found ourselves in the first couple of days, so that you don't have conflicting instructions happening on your lead.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like we kind of touched on it earlier, but there's, really quite a lot that action plans can do. But yeah, pausing all other action plans or even pausing a specific plan is a really good one to keep in mind.
I also think it's good to highlight here, Jorge just asked about automation sending an email to a third party. So in an action plan, if you choose send email, that's going to go to the lead or to the contact that this action plan is running on. But there's a new step here on the actions. Can you show the add note?
Oh.
To add a note, and this can notify someone on the team or a group of people on the team. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way of sending out any sort of notification to somebody on the team if there's an action that needs to happen from them. This is a little different than a task. Some people have been asking me why I use this versus a task. Maybe Caroline or Emily, you might want to share, like, when would you use a note versus a task in an action plan?
I think a note is good because, first it's going to log to the timeline. So you're going to see it in line with some of the other things, like especially if it was like website activity or something like that. So, the note is going to be in the timeline. You can also utilize merge fields to make this note just like a little bit more robust than maybe just a task. And then you can assign, for a task, like that's going to one person. But with a note, we can send that to a pond. You can actually notify the collaborators too. So I think this is just a bit more like further reaching in terms of like who has access to this. A note, another reason to kind of like lean towards a note as opposed to a task in some situations is that we don't want to like overflow tasks and have, millions of tasks due a day. You can simply just like clear out overdue tasks at some point. But those notes are always going to be in the timeline and they might just be, a little bit more relevant to a larger group.
I think use case for us would be like partway through an action plan if you wanted to bring in the collaborator to take a look at something, or if you wanted to trigger like the leads manager to look at something, it would be an easy way to just add that into the middle. Notes are something we haven't put into play completely, but we've been dreaming on our end of how we could use those because they're relatively new. But we agree with Caroline, like it's easy to task people to death. And that's not the goal. The goal is to put the tasks in front of the agents that you want them to focus on so that they actually do the work. Because if they have too many, they're just going to avoid them and not do them, or just check them off and pretend like they did them. And that's not the goal either. So we are task heavy. I know most teams out there are not, but we call ourselves a teamerage. Like we're a brokerage, but we're really just a team running as a brokerage. And so I don't think we made it up. I think we stole it from somewhere, but we're going to keep using it. But because of that, we really do, we're in our agents' databases, we're in their lives, we're trying to help them shape. Tasks have been a go-to way for us to say, get up in the morning, see what you need, who do you need to be talking to, replace that one-to-one. So if you just saw them last week and you're like, I don't really need to do that, I just saw them, check it off, but replace it with when do I need to talk to them next? You can set them out of sight and move on. And I know a lot of people use smart lists for that too, but tasks have been helpful to us.
Yeah, definitely.
Couple of questions coming in I thought may be good to just cover. Emily had a great question about assigning people to the pond using automation or an action plan. So we're actually going to be adding an additional step to action plans soon that would let you do that. So it could be like assigning to a pond, could be assigning to a specific person. So kind of like this use case that Emily mentioned before of like, hey, a new lead came in from Zillow, but they already existed in the database. What you're going to be able to do is say like, hey, I want to assign that, to a group of agents. I want it to be reassigned basically, because that person who maybe got assigned it like 3 years ago, they don't necessarily have to be the person who gets it now. So yeah, that's going to be a big upgrade, as well as, yeah, again, the ability to assign it to a pond. So yeah, great question. That's coming soon.
I'm so excited about that. That's huge in our world.
Yeah, for anyone, I think for anyone, they need to be doing it. I put a message in the chat before, like if your database is big, this just happens more and more often the bigger your database is. So, with teams like Emily's, it's really valuable. And then Jonathan had a question for you, Emily. He was just asking, how do you use automation with Homebot, or just maybe just in general? Can you tell us a bit about how you're using Homebot?
Sure. So our Homebot is used, it's in correlation with Ylopo. So we are Ylopo users. So that is going to shape how this answer goes. Just keep that in mind. So what we have found is that when a lead comes in on day one, again, everything for us is considered uncontacted until we connect with that person and we keep them. So an uncontacted lead comes in on day one, we immediately have a task for researching that lead to even figure out if they own a home. So we're checking tax records, we're Spokioing numbers and emails and kind of going next level we're the creepy stalker group trying to figure out who we're talking to. And all in the name of trying to provide really great customer and client experience, right? So day one, it's all about who is this lead and what do they need. If we don't connect with them, an automation kicks in when the stage changes that lead to day two for us, or it's actually 2 to 3. And it's going to move them over. And all it does is it triggers a step for us to check if they own a home or not based on the research done on day one. And if they do, we're going ahead and adding them to Homebot and sending them a message, letting them know that as like a gift to them, we're adding them to Homebot, explaining what that is and connecting with the lead in that way. They may or may not love that, but they can unsubscribe if they don't. But we're using it with uncontacted leads in that way. Contacted leads are past clients. We reached out and said, hey, we have a gift for you. This is super exciting because this is an amazing thing. We want to sign you up for this, and went ahead and signed them up in that path. But day two is typically the day that we're putting people on Homebot when they're coming in, if we can identify that they have a home to sell or if they own a home at all. And I see someone is asking, what is Homebot? That's a great question. Does your team want to take that, or do you want me to keep chatting?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from your perspective. I'll put a link to the website there. Yeah.
Perfect. So Homebot is it's a company that exists out there, and it gives great data. And Caroline, I don't know if you could pull up a link to Homebot, the one that Dan just pulled up, because it'd be easier for people to just look at it. Or if you want, we could pull one up from my database too, just to show what it is. But it's an AVM reading of the home's value, and it's going to come out weekly or monthly depending on how you've set it up. And it's going to be something that you can send as seller nurture to your clients that own homes, or to, again, your leads that come in that identify themselves as owning a home. If you go up to that Ylopo stars link, Caroline, right there under custom fields, and then scroll about 3/4 of the way. Oh, you've got to log in. Do I have the ability to share my screen?
Yeah.
I can just pull one up for you. All right, so I am logged in through the back end of Ylopo, and I'm gonna go ahead and click on our Homebot digest. Let's see. Oh, and of course I pulled up one that's not gonna work for us. All right, well, that wasn't nearly as finesse as I was hoping it would be, because I thought we'd be able to just show it really quickly, but it's a automated value of their home. It goes through, it gives the user options like, hey, what if you took this money and you took your equity and you were able, here we go, perfect. And you were able to invest that, or what if you were able to take that money and refinance and take that money out to do something else with it. So it gives you a lot of great options. I'm giving a terrible Homebot pitch right now, Dan, so hopefully someone from your team can recap this a little bit better. But either way, it's great seller nurture. In our world, seller nurture is really hard to come by. There are not a lot of products out there that you can use with your sellers in order to garner their attention. And so Homebot is a fantastic product. We love it. And it's a great way to stay in touch with your sellers in particular in your database. I don't know the answer about Homebot working in Canada, unfortunately. I see that in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. Someone else is asking, like, does Homebot require Ylopo? It doesn't. It's a separate company, but I think like they have a tight integration. with them. So yeah, but check out the website if you want to learn more. Like Emily said, it's a really great, like it looks really good basically as well. Because some of this, I'm trying to think of these older products that were like doing these similar updates. They just look terrible. Whereas like this is really modern. It's got lots of great data, like Emily was saying. So it's actually engaging, and people probably like look forward to getting it. So yeah, it's a great nurture tool.
I put myself on it. I like to see what our clients are going to see. I think that's important as user experience. We need to know. And so I put myself on it, and I look forward to getting the report, and it has pretty graphics. You can see the numbers go up or down and see what your neighborhood is doing. Ylopo comes in, I'll give a Ylopo plug too, but they come in alongside of it, and there are other email campaigns that go out with it that are going to drive that traffic back to you, back to your search site. And so it's a nice little partnership product between the two things. And then they interface with Follow Up Boss really nicely. Yeah.
Cool. There's another question here from Jacob. It says, if a lead comes in and has no call logged within 1 day, can we automatically reassign it to someone? So I wanted to break that question down. There's a few things there. So when a lead comes in, we still want to use lead flow to kick off any of those action plans. So just keep in mind that like automations are for our existing leads, which is why we have the triggers like kind of based on existing leads. That said, we can use call logs as like one of our conditions in here. So, you could say, calls made is less than like 2, and that could that could be a condition to kick off one of your action plans. And that action plan, right now, we don't have that reassignment step, but that is something we're working on. So the action plan could, in theory, reassign it to someone else. Let's see.
I see in the chat, Andrew was asking what's the difference between A, B, and C buyers. Would you like me to cover? I don't know if that's just us specific or.
It could be helpful, Emily, to even give, because stages are something that not everybody realizes are there, and how they can be used to organize. So just a quick pitch, because this ties in so closely with automations, being able to change a stage or being triggered by changing a stage. It all plays together.
Sure. So we realized pretty quickly in our business that you have to know what's in your hand to be able to manage it well. And that includes the business as a whole, and then agents individually too. So being able to see at a glance, how many A buyers do I have? And A buyers for us are pre-approved, ready to go, in the car, would maybe be like homeless tomorrow if we don't find them that house really quickly. And so those are going to be our A buyers. Typically, and you'll notice in the automation right here, because I know Caroline just popped it on the screen, all it's doing is changing the stage to A buyer. There's nothing else happening, but we went ahead and set the automation up in case we ever did anything else with that, or wanted to add a tag, or wanted to do something, that it would be ready to go, but it's already rolling. So when an agent changes that stage to A buyer, it's an A buyer. In the system as a whole, they can now see, based on SmartList, how many A buyers do I see at a glance. We can see as a brokerage how many we have as a whole based on our SmartList. So it's big picture, small picture, based on what part of the system you're looking at. B buyers are we're so close. We've got one little thing we're missing. Maybe it's pre-approval, maybe it's timing, maybe, we're waiting on something, but they're people that you want your agents focused on, or you as an agent want to focus on serving and making sure that you're helping them get up to that A. And then C buyers are nurturers. They're people that are walking like a buyer, talking like a buyer, and then they're doing all the right things. So you want to put time and effort into them, but they're not maybe like your today priority. Your A buyers are your top, your B buyers are your next, your C buyers come right after. Some businesses it's like A is buyer seller in that same category of hot, ready, right now. I know a lot of people use like the hot prospect and the like now business. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to phrase this. In our world, we've split up our categories into the buyer side, which is ABC, and then we have list side, because you have more categories. And we run a very large volume-based business, like there are 59 of us, but we're going to serve 1,000 families this year. And so because of that, it's easier for us to see things in stages, as these are our buyers right now. These are our sellers. So our seller stages are things like seller CMA, seller appointment, or once they go on the appointment, we have to know what's happening and where those guys are. And so you'll see them in the list that Caroline's kind of pulling up for you, but you're going to see that Our seller categories right now are like, we're waiting, like we need to follow up with them, we don't have paperwork yet. Or seller committed, like we know they're coming, we've got paperwork, they're coming in the next 30 days, which effectively makes them a coming soon in our market or for people on the team. So it's a little bit of like hidden inventory behind the scenes, or down here in Florida, we have to call them exclusive listings. Or you have seller lost, which is the saddest category. It's always the one I'm always like, oh, when I see it in Follow Up Boss. Or you have seller active listings. So our seller categories kind of go on. Our agents once a week spend time on Sundays in their databases, making sure their stages are right. It's a part of being a part of the brokerage. It's a part of learning how to manage what you have in your hand to ask, who am I serving this week? How do I help my A's find that thing? Do I need to go find hidden inventory? What am I doing? How do I get my B's up to an A this week? How do I chase that down? How do I get these C's off the fence? And then these automations pair perfectly. Jennifer is right. They pair perfectly with these because it's serving up these people in the right timings into their smart lists based on all of the other triggers that are set up. It's kind of a really long-winded explanation on A's, B's, and C's, but we've just found that stages are like they're not hidden, but they're a really great way to categorize and organize what you have in your hand. So it's really easy for an agent to log in and go, okay, I have 4 pendings right now and 0 A buyers. I need to go replace those pendings and get some A buyers in my hand. How am I going to do that this week? So it causes people to think when they slow down and have things in the right categories.
Yeah, and it really standardizes that like first level of categorization of these leads, which I think is like really key in getting these automations to be like super powerful, is that we're all kind of categorizing the same way. Emily, you mentioned something that I just remembered, like kind of like with the insurance that this gives you, with like agents only having to do just a few steps to kind of keep things on track. Like, can you speak to that just a bit?
Yeah, sure. So for me, as like I'm the COO of our brokerage, like I'm not in the field, I'm not managing, 10 families at a time or even 5 or 6 families at a time. And there are a lot of pieces up in the air. And so I really think that making database in particular as easy as possible for an agent who's spinning too many plates already, super, super important. So we prioritize it. And so telling them like, hey, work your database, get up, do your tasks, know who you have, know what they need from you. And then us controlling all of the crazy pieces underneath, like, hey, if you just pick the right stage as the agent, we'll make sure that that lead never gets dropped, because our leads manager can monitor her lists, or her crew that works can watch those lists and say, hey, Britt, did you see this? Hey, did you miss this? Hey, did you catch this? But the beautiful thing is automation now makes that possible for a single agent too, because it's queuing it up for you without those people poking you behind the scenes, as long as you set it up right and taken the time, right? So I think for us, we want the agents to be the agents. We want them to be experts at negotiations and relationships and contracts. And most of them are naturally gifted at those things and terrible at maintaining databases. So simplifying all of this for them and saying, just do this one thing right, or just stage people correctly, and we'll make sure that you're queued up with the right tasks or with the right prompts, makes their world possible. Especially in our world where we're small but mighty, because 59 people trying to serve 1,000, and like only 30, I think there's 37 of them in the field right now. So the rest of that is staff. So they're spinning all of those balls. So our job is to simplify things down to the point of where they can carry all the balls, but they're not dropping them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just keep them focused on like the parts that they do best, and less of those like administrative tasks.
Yeah. I like that Caroline just took my like 3-minute explanation and was like, oh, so it's like this 10-second thing. That's great. No,
you teed it up for me.
We've gotten a couple of questions about, how is this running right now? Is this gonna already be happening in my account? Caroline, can you just circle back and show just where these live and that they're not on right now and how you turn them on again?
Yeah, definitely. So let's go back here. So automations are going to be under the admin tab under automations. Everyone is going to have some preloaded automations, and that you can just go ahead and turn on right away. So you can just simply turn them on right here. And these preloaded automations are ones that we came up with, with working with like our beta testers, and, what were the triggers that were, most commonly used, like what kind of action plans are running for those, like what kind of things are people looking for, really. So we've preloaded some automations that you can just turn on. So feel free to just go ahead and turn a few of these on. Whether you're using the Pixel or not, some of these website activities you can start turning on to, start getting some traction. But then you can always, again, start from scratch by clicking on this add automations feature. So, you start with, adding your trigger, you can do an optional condition and then setting your action plan from here. So, I think just try to think of, even just like one or two things that you would like to automate. As we said, like maybe focus on stages and focus on standardizing some stages, pick a few action plans, build some of those out that feel really right. And then from there, just kind of pair those together and create it. But again, we also have the ability to share automations. So we have some shared ones out there already. Barry has some shared automations that he's already sharing, and maybe Emily will share a few with us after this and we can send them out to you.
Sure, some people would be happy for that.
Yeah.
On one of my favorite automations here to start with, especially if you have the Pixel on your website, is the one where people are back on the site searching, or that a closed or past client is back on the site, like a closed or past client saves a home. They might be looking again. So that's one to kind of pull back up into that funnel. If you don't have the Pixel on your website, that's a good reminder to go look that up.
Right. And we can get, you don't have, the Pixel isn't the only way we can get that activity. If you have other integrations, or if there's other inquiries that come in through, Zillow or something, we'll still pick those up. But the Pixel is definitely going to give you like the most robust information and events to use in these automations.
Ladies, I have a question for you that I see in the chat and I don't know the answer. So I'm going to ask you, can you edit the automations that someone else provides? So if I send out my automation and it shows up in someone else's account, how does that work?
Yeah, so if you share your automation with me, I can click use automation. I'll just use Barry's automation here. If you click use automation, it's going to bring you right to the edit screen. So you could say like, oh, I love this automation, but it has nothing to do with my pond. I want to exclude that. And I don't want any of these tags added. Instead, I want to include a stage in here and something like that. And now this automation is, yours to use. So, your changes are not live for like Barry's automation that he shared. So this is just like kind of novel to your account now.
What about action plans, Caroline? Are the action plans, if they're custom, are those going to come over with the automation that you're sharing as well?
Yes, so those will come over as well, and they'll be brought into your account, and you can edit them. That said, what's really cool about the way that we are sharing these action plans is, let's say Barry changes his Callingly action plan, I would actually see that there was, I don't know, yeah, it would show us that there's an update available, and you can update it to his like most current version of that plan.
I see that Kenneth is asking about a mind map or tool to track all the automations. We are not. We're building them on the fly just to be very transparent and asking what's working and what's not working. And then I think for us, controlling it by, have we covered every stage? Are we doing everything we could do for each stage? Is building maybe a mind map sort of out there, but no, the answer for us is no. Maybe Caroline or Jennifer has seen something different from other teams that they're helping that are more organized than we are down here in Orlando.
Honestly, I haven't really either. I think people are, just like you mentioned, like kind of getting their feet wet, like trying some of these out and like really hammering out these processes as they go. Like as we kind of mentioned earlier, it's like good to start with like what's like one thing that we can automate, like how can we save just a few steps and then build off of that right now. So I think that's what's kind of cool, that we're all in the same boat together. And I think that's where that share feature can really come in handy. where, you know, you can share these out to the Follow Up Boss community and say like, hey, this is working really well for me. You know, thought you guys might be interested. Or, you know, the reverse of that is like, you know, we've been using this automation, but not getting a ton of traction. Like, does anyone have any insight here? So I think, you know, kind of like crowdsourcing some of that information sharing is going to be like really powerful for everyone. And then Henry asked if we can share these action plans and the automations. So, you know, you have these automations preloaded into your account already. So you can simply turn on these. There's 11 of them that you can just turn on right away. And then we have some other shared automations in our help center. So we can definitely share out a link to that. And then, yeah, if Emily wants to share any, or as we go, we'll continue like sharing out other shared automations to keep all that information moving.
On the mind map topic, one thing that I've been doing as I've been setting these up with different teams has been just some naming consistency. So if I make an action plan that's going to be triggered by this one automation, that's going to be triggered by this one tag, using the same name across all three of those just makes it easier to trace back what's happening and why. That way you're not confusing yourself.
When we're building these, we tend to have two windows open too, like of Follow Up Boss. So we might have the action plan window here and the automation screen here, so that you can see things both at the same time and think through, do I want this plan? Do I not want this plan? What was in that plan again? Do I need to adjust that plan? And you can do it kind of simultaneously. I know it sounds really simple, but I think most people forget you can open the same program twice and in two different tabs and simplify that way. And that helps when you're building these things.
Yeah, it's a really good tip to just have them open in these separate windows so you can edit the action plan as you go. Let's see if there's any other questions here. So Anton's asking, is there a resource group of vendors or operation consultants to help with the automation? So we are, you know, as we mentioned, we do have some like shared automations. Barry has shared some automations that, you know, are really helpful with Bilopo specifically, but we're also looking to pair with some like coaching groups and getting some other automations out there to share with you guys. That will be really powerful. So, you know, kind of stay tuned there. We definitely want to, you know, keep providing you with powerful automations that we know can be successful. So just stay tuned in, you know, like our Facebook community, and we'll keep that information coming.
Can I just give a shout out to our Follow Up Boss rep, Michael, for answering my hundreds of questions a year that I sent him, but in particular about automations over the last few weeks. I would go out on a limb to say that whoever it is that you talk to from Follow Up Boss regularly, or your success manager, is going to be able to help you with every use case scenario that you have questions about. And they will be able to guide you, help you. Michael has done that for me more times than I can count, and we're grateful for it. And so don't be afraid to raise your hand. That's one of the things we love most about Follow Up Boss. I've said this in multiple places across time, but Follow Up Boss is a partner for us, and you have to see your database as a partner in your business, because it is the thing, it's the gold in your business. These people that live as contact cards are the gold. So don't be afraid as an agent or as a team leader to ask for help from the Follow Up Boss team, because they will help you manage, they will help you manipulate all the fields, they will help you understand all these concepts and get people into the right spaces to make your world as simple as possible. So they don't pay me to say that. I don't get the award that Caroline and Jennifer both have that Dan alluded to at the beginning of this call, but we do really see Follow Up Boss as a partner for our business in setting up that thing that matters most, which are the people that we're serving. So I'm appreciative of that. And I do want to shout out Michael, because the poor guy has to deal with me. But for all of you watching, your rep is going to be your greatest resource on making sure that you know what to do and how to set up these pieces for your business.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly what I was going to say. I just tagged Michael so he gets your kudos. Whenever, honestly, at Follow Boss, what we try and do, and like this is something you guys can steal if you're not doing it, you already, yeah, in your teams. But like, whenever someone gets a good feedback, you got to share that with the rest of the team, right? So whether it's a great review for selling their house or helping them find a home or whatever, that's a culture building thing. We definitely do it here because when someone says like Jennifer's awesome or Caroline's awesome or Michael's awesome, like that reinforces like great behavior, right? So, I mean, we're super glad to hear that you guys are happy. And, I would say, I think there are teams on our platform that are not utilizing their success rep. And that's a mistake, basically. Like we've hired these people, they're experts in the platform. They can definitely work with you to, I'm sure, find ways you could be using follow-up bots because we're always rolling out new features and we don't expect people to stay on top of them all by themselves. But yeah, if you haven't talked to your success rep in a while or ever, you need to find out who that is and do an account review. And we're always trying to reach out to people and get in contact with them. But I would just suggest be proactive and just ask questions like, hey, how can my team be running as great as Emily's, right? Like, and we can share some best practices and tips. And we do try as well to like make it simple and be like, hey, because there's 100 things you can do in Follow Up Boss, and like it's like going to a gym with 100 different pieces of equipment. You don't have to be using them all. We want to find like the high leverage ones you guys can start using to ultimately close some more deals. So yeah, thanks for giving the shout out to our success team. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Emily. It was super. I think everyone loved having you on. And yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks, Caroline, for all your hard work building this feature. I guess you may have to take some time off now or something. And thanks, Jennifer, for answering all the questions.
Yeah,
And
I've been trying to keep up with the questions, but there are some that I haven't gotten to. If I haven't gotten to yours, I'll circle back and follow up with you directly. Okay, guys?
yeah, we're going to have a list of them. So yeah, thanks. Jennifer's done a great job there. And we'll definitely send out the replay. I know like 10,000 people asked that. And we're going to be sharing some more automations, like Caroline mentioned, from different coaching groups. And please, if you've created a great one that you like, share that in our Facebook community as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for attending, and yeah, just enjoy the rest of your day.